Hello, my name is Peyton Martin, and this is my work that I've created over the course of the Summer Individual Investigation for 2026. My intention with this project was to learn the fundamental principles of character modeling and rigging well enough to continue developing more advanced and ambitious rigs in future projects. Over the course of the semester, I created two highly detailed 3D models using Blender, which was rigged using both IK and FK compatibility with the support of Blender's data-driven drivers. Um, all of the work that I've done to create everything I'll be showing off is supported by online tutorials and research focused on rigging workflows and production practices. I highly recommend Dicko's Modeling for Animation and Rigging for Animation series on YouTube, which was the primary source used to create this project. Um, my experience in Blender beforehand primarily included 3D modeling and animation, but I had very little experience in the high to low topology 3D workflow, rigging, weight painting, drivers, blend shapes, and all the other specific aspects of rigging that I had to learn over the course of the semester. First and foremost, when starting this project, my goal was to try and use this time to exercise every skill in my arsenal rather than just learn the basics of rigging. That includes creating a more accurate and clean model sheet for the models, creating compelling character designs that look visually appealing from every angle, learning proper topology and edge loops to allow the models to have clean bending at the joints, and to have a better understanding of Blender from the inside and out. However, with that being said, I did set out to create not one but two fully rigged characters, but with the time I had, I only successfully created one. Nonetheless, I have the second character fully modeled with topology fit for an armature. But in order to create the specific characters I had lined up for the project, I met my first pinch point, which was my characters are not simple at all. Uh, Now, of course, I could have drawn up characters that were built to be more simple to create, comprised of primitives that could be done in a few hours, but my goal was to learn proper modeling and rigging, so I went all out. To kill two birds with one stone, I specifically wanted to create characters that I had the intention of using for future projects. Without further ado, let me show them off. So this first character has the deliberate purpose after the semester to be used in a mod for one of my favorite platform fighting games, Rivals of Ether 2 by Ether Studios. The game features a highly competitive Super Smash Bros. Melee style with a combat system full of stylized anthropomorphic animal characters with elemental powers. This character is called Igneos. The reason behind rigging an anthropomorphic character also stemmed from the desire to challenge myself with inhuman proportions and anatomy to see how I can perform without following a tutorial 100%. There are many areas during long modeling sessions where I needed to model something completely different than what I was being shown. Um, but by applying the same techniques and topology tips, I managed to nearly perfectly copy the model sheet in accuracy. Um, Things like the tail were done at the end, especially during rigging, where the knowledge of how to do every other part of the body had already clicked. So even when the tutorial I followed didn't include anything about rigging a tail, I could do it all on my own because I had already known how to create like an FK and IK system with drivers to switch between them. Um, Yeah, but in order to create a character like this that could blend right into the visual style of a video game, I needed to learn um, from the models that were already created for that game. I found official models of the game's characters to study, and I found that proportions and techniques for rigging and modeling, the eyes in particular, were something to keep in mind when making the character as to stay accurate to those models. As you can see here, this character named Fleet. It's kind of hard to see. I'll probably show it more off when I get to the section where I actually go into Blender and show it. But rather than having an outward facing eyeball with like an orb, the eyes are concave. They go inward, and then the pupil is kind of just a floating thing that kind of just floats around at the very edge of the eye to give it that more 2D look. And yeah, here's some other characters from Rebels of Ether 2, and here's some concept art and stuff I have for Igneos. And here's the second character. His name is Guy. It's a great name, I know. The purpose of this character is to be used in the short film A Better Life. Me and a few other Kent State alumni have worked together to create the film during the spring 2026 senior capstone, and I was the animation lead for that. The biggest critiques we had at Showcase is that the project, the character the guy character here, this is all the screenshots I could get from the project. He looks like a wax figure. He looks a little uncanny. Um, the con the context for this is that, the rig was made in like 3 days using Rigify, so we were fumbling like crazy to get something production ready. But now that showcase is over, I thought that I would take the opportunity to get the ball rolling and create a new and improved model um, with a fully handmade rig this time, so that when we start production back up for a better life, um, we can have something better for film festivals. Uh, of course, as before, I made sure to study the original model to see what was done incorrectly, so that when I went to creating the new one, I would know what not to do this time, especially in the sculpting and retopology. Uh, but yeah, here's like the old version of the model. It's very wide. I have the new version of the model sheet for the character. It's more accurate, and in general, the first time around, I did not use a model sheet. Um, it's kind of a bit of a Frankenstein of a lot of things, but yeah, here is a compare and contrast of the old and the new. But yeah, I think I've shown off all there is to these models, so I'm going to go into Blender and pull up what I've done. So yeah, so here is the first model, Igneos. Um, I have a lot of stuff to show off with Igneos. He's a very strange character. Very hard to do at first, but um, I guess to start off, you know what? I realized that the model is much bigger than it used to be. Uh, because I had to match the size of characters from the original game, he's much, much larger. Hello, coming back in just to show off some of the other models from the game, from Rebels of Ether 2. These are the models that I gained some inspiration from uh, when it came to the rigging process. Here's that eye thing that I was talking about earlier. The eyes are kind of a floating piece, and the whites of the eyes are kind of just floating. And I intend to do the same thing with mine. There's a lot of shader things that they've done, a lot of like um, normal maps, occlusion maps, all that stuff that I still have yet to do for mine. But just wanted to pop in, show off these models and how they compare to mine. And yeah, but we have the model sheets right here. Um, I had this side for the front view, and then I aligned it so that from the side view it would perfectly align. I believe this is the original head sculpt I did, um, which is a reoccurring thing that I've done for both, where I would fully model the body. I would start with a single cube and then just keep extruding and adding loop cuts throughout to kind of trace the perimeter of the model. And then by the time I reached the neck, I would grab models for the head, and then I would join all of the pieces to create the general shape of the head, and then I would um, subdivide it all. I would use a subdivision modifier, I believe. Subdivision, is that a thing? Yeah, probably uh, subdivide if that's just a modifier. Gosh, modifiers are my best friend now. That's another thing that I will say that I've learned the most from this project is that I I had no idea how much Blender utilized modifiers and how much more they really help with everything. Um, I'll probably get into that a little more when I get to the guy rig because I needed that a lot when it came to the clothing. But here, let's just show off some of the cool topology things I ended up learning. Stuff like the elbows. So here we have pretty good topology. Everything my goal throughout this project was to, well, it doesn't always work, but creating lines that just go right around the whole thing, make sure everything is neat. In some spots, I use the inset to kind of isolate a specific part so that I could manipulate it. Like, let's say if the character had like a belly or needed to like have a breathing animation, separating that off is a good way to kind of isolate the section without having much more of the surrounding model be influenced. I did the same kind of thing with the pecs, and um, I think I did that with a butt, but because I had a tail, I ended up doing quite a bit of stuff to make the tail work. Tail is was a pretty difficult part. I'd say the feet in this case was quite difficult, mainly because I kind of had to copy the hands, but down here. But I did the same kind of thing with the elbows, where I have this particular way of uh, having the edges for the joints so that they can deform better. I would show it off here, but I feel like that would take a little too much time. I do also have textures. Here is the textures for the rig. I'm not show off the mouth bag yet, but that was interesting and fun to do. Apologies again for the eyes, because I resized this model earlier, and the eyes weren't properly parented. Something happened to them. They're gone in the ether. They're gone forever. But that's all right. I probably should show off the rig now because I've been showing off a lot of the model. I've not shown off any of the armature. We have several different sections. I separated all of these bones into bone collections for better um, like organization. We have the basic deformation bones here. This was kind of this is the bones that just move everything. But
Uh, some of these bones are solely meant to keep things in place, like the face here. I also have, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a bunch of bones around the mouth for the lips, and then bones keeping the teeth in place. In hindsight, I believe I found out how to separate a mesh from a model without having it be a completely different model. Like, like have it so that it's still influenced by the original. I think it's just P, and then you separate by selection. I don't know. Still learning, but it still does the job. That mixed with a lot of weight painting helped a lot. After I made this base deformation armature, I made a bunch of bones that actually control everything. So these bones, all these control bones for the IK and the FK, and some of these mechanism bones, none of these deform. They are all parented to the deformation bones, unless there's, I forgot what it's called, but actually I can show it off here. If I go to pose mode, the deformation ones, these green ones, have, if I do Control Shift C, I believe, you can add a constraint. So a lot of these FK and IK and control bones are constrained so that they copy all the transformations to those deformation bones. So even though they're not deformed bones, when I move them, they move the deformed bones at the same time. Maybe I should start moving this guy around. Uh, I'll show off the controls real quick. So we've got some hip rotators. We got this one also moves the hips up and down. I believe I can. This also moves around the guy. He has IK turned on right now, so that's why the arms and legs are staying in place while the hips move. I'm very proud of how it turned out. I ended up having to do a lot of weight painting on the feet and stuff in order to keep the feet all in place, because that's strange. Why is one leg going lower than the other? Oh, that might be something I have to look at. But anyways, um, here is the mouth. I can actually show the mouth opening. It's got some teeth in there, looking pretty cute. To do some more weight painting. Weight painting is a drag for anyone who's done rigging in any capacity before. Hate it, but you know. So the tongue, it does extend outward. We got little rotation controls for all these. Um, so yeah, we got that. Um, then we got the head moves as well independently. Deformation's pretty smooth. Uh, Probably have to do some more stuff on here to make sure it doesn't bend in half, but overall, everything in the head area looking pretty good. Let's move these shoulders. They rotate like so. Um, and I believe since IK is on, here, let me show off this. This is one of the base controls. This rotates just the upper half of the body, and then we have a base controller that moves everything like this. I think since IK is still on, it's being funny with the legs, but I kind of like that it's doing that because maybe I want to angle the character but still have the feet be in its place. Uh, After those, I will show off this base control. So here we have the properties. These properties do a lot of cool stuff, with drivers. So they're IK to F or FK to IK. So currently these are all at 1, which means that these are all in the IK position. But if I remove them and then switch these to 0, then it should move right back to FK. In that case, let me do it for these arms. I think it's mirrored right now, but whatever. So for the arm, if I move this to 1, it goes back to default. But if I turn on FK, that means I can move all the FK now. Actually, let me see, because I might be seeing another. Aha, no, okay. I should add these finger controls to the control section because I would like to still move those without having to keep these on the same time. That's one thing. The controls and the IK and FK are kind of separate, so you're gonna have to keep control and then IK or FK on whenever you need to do some movement at any point in time. But you know, that's fine. I have the same thing for the tail. I think the tail is currently in FK. Let me move that to IK. Uh, actually, these, by the way, these floating balls, these are all for the elbows. So you can like move the arms and then rotate the roll for the elbows at the same time for IK. That's one of my favorite things about IK. I just think personally IK is just better in general. Of course, IK doesn't want to function right now. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know why. That's all right. And then I think I can still move these bones. Can I? I don't know. It don't want to work for me right now. Here's another thing. There's isometric rotation for different parts of the body. So you see how the arms are kind of moving away from the body like that whenever I rotate it? That's due to that. And if I were to turn, oh, I think that's the wrong one. Wait, let me. That could be actually just due to the the IK. There we go. So they need to be an FK for that to do that. But usually the arms just move in place like this, but having those isometric things for the arms make it so I am so confused. Why is that not working? I'll have to check that out later. Like I said, a lot of doohickeys, a lot of hiccups, but um still made lots of progress nonetheless. This is my favorite part of the entire thing. Um, these feet, these were a pain to make, but these flag controls essentially allow me to move him on his tippy toes or move it back and then move it so he's on his heel, but he stays downward like that. And it's not just the front too. I can do it on the side, and I can just have it so that if I move it around, he will just kind of stay in place like that. We have a control here to move all of the toes at the same time. Of course, still move the toes individually. This is the Michael Jackson control. This is for hee hee. And yeah, this is more useful for shoes. Obviously, not super useful when he's standing on a single toe like that, but I thought I'd add it anyway because it's part of the learning process. This is the first rig I've made. Uh, let's see. I think that's about it. I do have all these mechanism bones as well, but these are essentially mainly just so that some things work. Like these bones on here allow it so that when you rotate the wrist, it has 50%. It's hard to see with the it's hard to see with the type of bones they are now. I think I had them as something else earlier, but basically the wrist will move slightly with the hand. It's like 50%, but the armature's working pretty well with that. Uh, yeah, there's just so much here, and I think I did a pretty good job on this first one. I still have some things left to do. Actually, thank you for reminding me, Peyton, because we still have to look at the eyeball blend shape. I only made one, sadly. There's these little face controls, and because of time constraints, I ended up just kind of doing one and then going to the next model. But I discovered what blend shapes are, shape keys. So I only made one. It's the blink, and let me do it now. So blend shape keys are essentially when you can sculpt the model in a particular way and actually move the topology itself without the needs for a bone. And as long as you set a shape key for it, you can seamlessly go from 1 to 0. So I can have a blink shape key without the need for actually having bones that do it, which is phenomenal. That's why I'm going to eventually parent these shape keys to bones so that I can allow bones to do the same job, because that will probably make it a lot more useful when I move it to Unreal Engine. But yeah, that's about it with Igneous. So I will move on to um, what about a guy? Um, and here's my guy. Here is some of the model sheets. This will have a better example of how it looks compared to it. I have the front angle and the wait, the side angle. Get out of here, old guy. Uh, and yeah, pretty accurate, I'd say. The biggest hurdle with this one is that he has clothes. There's a lot of secondary models. The thing that was easy about the Igneous model is that he had no clothes, no hair, no nose, no ears. Uh, he was pretty simple. But with this one, there's so many extra pieces that have to go onto it in order for it to work. These clothes here, I did join them together, and then I merged all the vertices along the belt so that they would be a single piece. Because one of the issues with the first model, the first rig, is that whenever you would bend him, like, actually maybe it won't work with linking. I'm not gonna worry about it right now. But if you bended his body along the waist, his shirt and his pants would come apart, and you would just cut in half. But that shouldn't be an issue anymore. Of course, sadly, this rig is not complete. We just have a model right here, but we got the clothes set from the model. Here is him naked. Um, he's like a Ken doll. And likely, what I'm going to do in the meantime is for whenever I get to that rig, I'm going to have these clothes stay the same, but I will likely shrink these arms and legs and the torso to be way skinnier so that the clothes, that's just the shirt, the initial shirt model, so that where's the outfit? So the clothes won't have any clipping. Because if I like were to move a part of this model, the shirt and the body would just go through each other and it'd be really ugly and gross. And yeah, uh, I did use where is the hair stuff? Because there's tons of little things that I ended up doing with this hair. Is it the hair curves? Where are the hair curves at? Let's just turn the Bezier on. There we go. I use this for the hair. I basically have a curve and this Bezier and then a nerd path, and I should have a modifier. Or no, it wasn't a modifier. It's like a data thing, but it has geometry, and I closed the top and bottom so that it would be in this kind of football formation, and its shape along the outside is dictated by this top thing. So if I were to move any of these, oh, whoops, then it does that, and it would do that for all of them. But obviously, I have a secondary version of the model um, for whenever I was doing the initial sculpt. This is actually a retopologized version of the head because there was way, way, way too much geometry happening on the hair, and of course, I would like it to be um, looking much better for the actual film. Gosh, I really wish I had the time to get into this rig because this is probably I'm very proud of this model. This is one of the best models I've made. I that's one thing. The shoes are the body, but that was kind of the intent from the beginning. He wasn't gonna have like there's not gonna be any socks showing because his pants are kind of sagging like that. But yeah, enough with the yappy meal. That's basically all I have to show for now. Thank you for listening if you've listened, and yeah, these are my models that I made and one of the rigs that I made.